An 885-foot stone wall zigzags across a Georgia summit with no gates, no entrance, and no builder anyone can name. And it's only one of the ancient structures scattered through the Blue Ridge that archaeology still can't close the file on. Mika dug from a North Carolina hillside sites sealed inside Ohio burial mounds, moved across 400 miles by a system nobody wrote down. Most people know these mountains as overlooks and leaf season, but that's the postcard, not the map. And by the time we reach number 1, you'll be standing over a single stone carrying more than 1,000 deliberate marks, and not one person alive can tell you what any of them mean. One thing before we start, so you know what kind of research is behind this. Every case in this video was built from excavation reports, tribal records, and site documentation. And the full case files, including dozens that didn't make the cut, are gathered in my book, The Appalachian Mysteries Collection. It's linked below. That's all, and I won't bring it up again. Number 18, the wall with no fort. Start with a fortification that has no fort, guarding a summit against an enemy no document names. Fort Mountain sits at the southwestern edge of the Blue Ridge in Murray County, Georgia. Its top just shy of 2,900 feet. Walk the marked trail, and you meet it. 885 feet of stacked, unmortared stone zigzagging along the ridge, roughly waist-high, with 29 pit-like depressions along its length. The state park explains what it can. Archaeologists loosely place the wall in the woodland period, possibly around 500 CE. That's where the certainty stops. No artifacts confirm a purpose. It's not clearly defensive, not clearly ceremonial, and never finished into anything a soldier or a priest would obviously use. Cherokee oral tradition, recorded as early as the 1700s, offers its own answer. The wall belonged to the Moon-Eyed people, pale, night-seeing builders who lived here before the Cherokee arrived and were driven out. That's legend, not archaeology. And the two have never been reconciled. The park sign calls it a mystery wall. For once, the sign is not overselling. Number 17, trees bent on purpose. Here's a structure made of living wood, still growing, and possibly still pointing at something. Scattered through the range, including documented candidates near Mountain City, Georgia, stand hardwoods with strange geometry. Picture an oak with a 90-degree elbow 4 feet off the ground, aimed along a ridgeline like a frozen gesture. The practice behind them is real. Native communities bent saplings to mark routes toward water, gaps, and river crossings, and the technique is historically attested. The problem is arithmetic. Most surviving hardwoods are too young to predate the removals of 1838. That means many so-called marker trees are really storm damage, fallen limbs, or a cow leaning on a sapling a century ago. Researchers and tribal consultants now core date candidates one by one. A minority pass. Most fail. The honest picture is that a genuine signaling network once ran through these forests, and nearly all of it died standing before anyone documented it. What remains is a handful of verified survivors and a lot of hopeful misidentification. The map was alive once. Living maps rot. Number 16, arrows under the river. Some ancient engineering hides in plain sight every time the water drops. Stand on a bridge over the Little Tennessee River in western North Carolina in late summer, when the river runs thin, and watch a dark chevron surface. A stone V spanning the channel, point aimed downstream. These are Cherokee fish weirs, funnels of piled rock that drove fish into baskets waiting at the apex. They're pre-contact construction, some possibly more than 1,000 years old. And here's the part the postcard never mentions. Some were maintained and used by Cherokee families into the 20th century within living memory. Nobody has a complete count. New weirs are still being confirmed on these rivers, while others were dynamited or buried in silt without anyone recording the loss. Individual ages come as ranges, not dates, because a rebuilt stone wall in moving water resists dating. But the function is settled, and the scale is quietly remarkable. This is the oldest continuously visible engineering in the region, still holding its shape under the current. Tourists photograph the river. The river is showing them an older economy, and almost nobody looks down. Number 15. The Gallery. Nobody noticed. A rock art gallery sat beside a tourist attraction for 200 years, and nobody saw it until 2003. Hagood Mill, at the foot of the Blue Ridge Escarpment in Pickens County, South Carolina, has ground grain since 1845. A working historic site with school tours and festival days. Then a survey crew cleaned off a low granite outcrop a few feet from the foot traffic and found more than 30 carved human figures, some arranged as if walking in procession. Think about that. Generations of millers, farmers, and visitors stood on top of them. The state responded by building a protective structure over the stone, which means South Carolina now operates a museum wrapped around a question mark. No reliable method dates the carvings. Stylistic guesses span centuries, and the identity of the carvers is inference, not record. What the discovery proved is more uncomfortable than any single answer would be. If 30 figures can hide under grass at a maintained tourist site, the escarpment is almost certainly holding more. 2 centuries of milling grain on top of a message. That's the Blue Ridge in one image. Everything so far you could walk up and touch. A wall, a bent oak, stones in a river, carvings under a shed roof. That roadside layer is ending. The next stops sit underneath the attractions themselves, where the ground runs deeper than the signage admits. And the stone at the end of this list makes Hagood's 30 figures look like a footnote. Number 14. A lodge on 8,000 years. One of the most photographed stops on the Blue Ridge Parkway sits on one of its oldest addresses, and the signs barely mention it. Peaks of Otter at milepost 86 in Bedford County, Virginia, draws bus tours for the lake, the lodge, and the 19th century resort story. Under the lawn, the ground tells a longer one. Excavations documented human presence going back roughly 8,000 years. Hunting camps drawn to the mountain gap. Occupation layers stacked like tree rings beneath the picnic tables. That depth is confirmed archaeology, not speculation. Yet the story visitors receive is weighted almost entirely toward the 1800s. The ordinary, the hotel, the carriage road. Picture the timeline honestly. People were camping in this gap before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, before writing. And the official version starts with a hotel register. The imbalance isn't a scandal, just a habit. Resorts photograph well, stratigraphy does not. The View got the postcard. The ground under the gift shop got 8 millennia and a paragraph. Number 13. The mound nobody opened. There's an ancient structure at a downtown intersection in Franklin, North Carolina, mowed weekly but excavated never. Nikwasi Mound rises as a grass dome behind a low wall, with shops, traffic, and a gas station in its sightline. It anchored the Cherokee town of Nikwasi, and its council house once stood on top. The mound itself may be 1,000 years old. Colonial forces burned the town in 1761. The mound survived, and then survived everything else. Road building, commercial development, a century of the town simply growing around it. What makes it unusual on this list is restraint. No professional excavation has ever opened it, so its internal construction and true age are inferred from comparable sites, not measured. In 2019, the deed was transferred to a Cherokee-led nonprofit after decades of local argument over who should hold it. Cherokee tradition adds one more layer, clearly in the category of oral history. The Nunehi, immortal defenders, are said to dwell inside. Take that as belief, not evidence. Either way, the arithmetic stands. The one structure everyone in town drives past daily is the one nobody has ever looked inside. Number 12. Rock piles nobody claims. Scattered through the wooded foothills of the Virginia Blue Ridge sit hundreds of deliberate stone piles and a century-long argument about who stacked them. Picture knee-high domed cairns in loose rows under mountain laurel, sealed in moss, far from any trail. The default explanation is boring and often correct. Settlers clearing fields tossed rocks into piles, and forest grew back over the evidence. But some clusters refuse the story. They sit on grades too steep to farm, show internal structure instead of random dumping, and hold alignments field clearing doesn't produce. Tribal representatives have identified certain Virginia cairn fields as ceremonial stone landscapes. And this isn't fringe talk. It's an active professional dispute, argued in surveys and preservation reviews. Here's the frustrating part. No cheap test separates a farmer's pile from a built one. And excavating a possibly ceremonial stack is itself contested ground. So the piles wait, case by case. Some agricultural, some almost certainly not. The safest sentence in Virginia archaeology is, some of them. Everyone hates that sentence. It also happens to be accurate. Number 11, bowls still in the mountain. Imagine a factory floor abandoned mid-shift 3,000 years ago. Along the soapstone belt near Schuyler, Virginia, on the eastern flank of the Blue Ridge, bedrock outcrops still carry bowl-shaped blanks half carved into the stone. Chisel scars visible, forms roughed out and never snapped free. In the late Archaic, before pottery, people quarried this soft rock for cooking vessels. Rough the bowl out on the parent stone, break it loose, finish it elsewhere. The finished bowls traveled. Sourcing studies trace stone from this belt far across the southeast, moving along exchange routes nobody wrote down and no one has fully mapped. The unfinished blanks stayed put, a production line frozen at the moment someone set down a tool and walked away. The quarrying is confirmed. The method is confirmed. How far the trade reached and who carried it is only partly mapped. Stand at one of these outcrops and the intimacy is the strange part. Not a monument. A workplace, mid-task, with the work still attached to the mountain. Remember this stone. It comes back. Number 10, paint older than pyramids. Pigment on an open cliff face has survived roughly 5,000 years of Appalachian weather. Beside a road, trucks use daily. Paint rock stands about 100 feet over the French Broad River in Madison County, North Carolina, above an old drover's route near the Tennessee line. High on the stone, faded red ochre bars catch the light. Easy to dismiss, and for generations, dismissed they were. Natural iron staining, people said, or 18th century graffiti. Analysis changed that. The pigment was applied by human hands, and dating work placed the marks deep in the Archaic, making them among the oldest surviving pictographs in the eastern United States. What they meant is unrecoverable. Even what they depict is uncertain. Bars, tally-like strokes, possibly figures weathered past recognition. The exact date is a range, not a year. And honest researchers say so. Meanwhile, the ochre is measurably fading, thinned by every freeze and every wet season. On a cliff, nobody can roof over. The oldest artwork in these mountains is dissolving next to a state road. Most drivers clear it in 4 seconds. That was the half you can stand next to. Walls, weirs, quarries, paint on rock. From here, the map runs on excavation reports, magnetometers, and testimony, things reconstructed rather than seen. Certainty drops as the numbers do, and ahead sits the stone that ties a quarry you've already visited to a giant the Cherokee say came down the mountain. Number 9, the mine that fed Ohio. Ohio's Great Hopewell mounds are full of mirror-bright mica, and much of it came from one hillside more than 400 miles away. The Sinkhole Mine sits near Bandana, in Mitchell County, North Carolina, where 19th century miners kept finding something inconvenient. Ancient pits already dug. spoil ridges already piled, tools already left behind. Native mining here predates the industrial era by roughly 2,000 years. Walk the slope today, and sheets of mica still flash in the dirt like dropped glass. Sourcing studies link Appalachian mica to Hopewell ceremonial deposits, where craftsmen cut it into mirrors, hands, and bird claws, and sealed it in graves. That connection is solid science. What isn't solid is everything in between. No writing, no roads, no pack animals, yet quantities of a fragile, sheet-thin mineral crossed the mountains intact and arrived in the Ohio Valley in condition good enough to carve. The routes, the carriers, the terms of exchange, all reconstruction from endpoints, with the middle of the journey blank. Think about that. These mountains were exporting before they had a name on any map. Number 8. Geometry under the pasture. Instruments dragged across ordinary farmland near Canton, North Carolina, found precise shapes no one standing there can see. Garden Creek in the Pigeon River Valley has been a known mound site since the mid-20th century, partially excavated, mostly returned to hay. Then came the magnetometers. Recent geophysical survey revealed ditched enclosures under the pasture. Crisp, deliberate geometry glowing on a screen beneath an entirely blank field. The developing interpretation is the part that changes the map. The designs suggest connections to Hopewell ceremonial architecture, the same distant world that was importing this region's mica. Line those two facts up. The minerals moved north. The ideas may have moved back. The Blue Ridge wasn't a wall between cultures. It was a participant, holding ceremonies connected to a civilization several states away. Most of the site remains unexcavated under working private land, so the argument runs on remote sensing and fragments. The field grows hay on top of a debate about who these mountains talk to. The cows have never once looked down. Number 7. The capital that went quiet. One of the busiest trade towns in the 18th century Southeast is now a riverbend most drivers never register. Cowie sat on the Little Tennessee downstream of Franklin, the same river still holding its fish weirs. In its prime, it was a Cherokee mother town, a center of politics and exchange, described in detail by the naturalist William Bartram when he visited in 1775. He recorded a substantial town. Within a year, military campaigns burned it. Stand at the site today and the contrast is the whole story. A low grassy mound above quiet bottomland. Cattle country stillness. No monument drama. The town's actual footprint, houses, plaza, roads, remains essentially unexcavated. A settlement we can read about in a first-hand account is nearly invisible in the ground record. In 2007, the land was returned to the eastern band of Cherokee Indians, and the choice since then has been preservation over excavation. Deliberately. That's the second time on this list that knowledge has been set aside on purpose, and it won't be the last. Some capitals fall to armies. This one fell to quiet. Number 6. An alphabet behind bars. In a gap in the Georgia Blue Ridge, 6 soapstone boulders carry more than 100 carved figures, crosses, circles, animal tracks, human feet, and not one has ever been translated. Track Rock Gap sits in the Chattahoochee National Forest in Union County, a short walk from a parking pull-off. One of the most accessible major petroglyph sites in the South. It's also caged. The boulders sit behind steel grates, installed after decades of vandalism. So you view the carvings through bars, shadows pooling in the grooves at dusk. The carving span likely covers many centuries, and both Creek and Cherokee traditions reference the site. Those are traditions, clearly labeled, not decoded meanings. Nobody has the meanings. And here's what most visitors never learn. The boulders are only half of what this gap is hiding. The slope above them holds something that made national news and started one of the strangest fights in modern Southern archaeology. We're coming back for it. For now, note the arrangement. A fence protects the stones from people. Nothing at all protects the meaning from time. The last 4 entries were about what the ground still holds. The final 5 are where this stops being comfortable. A European fort erased for 4 centuries. A legend somebody carved a face for. A viral war over a hillside. And 2 stones that answer to no one, including the most carved rock east of the Mississippi, whose age is still a fight. Number 5, the Fort Spain lost. The first European fort in the interior of the United States was built 40 years before Jamestown, and then went missing until this century. In 1567, the Spanish captain Juan Pardo marched into the upper Catawba Valley near present-day Morganton, North Carolina, and built Fort San Juan beside the native town of Yawara. 18 months later, the garrison was wiped out, the fort burned, and the site fell so completely out of history that generations of scholars treated it as geography nobody could pin down. The archives insisted it existed. The ground refused to confirm it. Then, excavations at the Berry site found burned Spanish structures. And, in 2013, the fort's footprint itself, a moat outline and post stains emerging from a soybean field. That confirmation rewrote the timeline. Spain reached the Blue Ridge first, and the people already living here expelled them. Why the uprising happened survives only in fragments. Accounts hint at demands, insults, and broken arrangements, but the final days are partial record, not narrative. History didn't forget this place, it was made to forget. Number 4, the legend with a face. Remember the wall with no builder back at the top of this list? There's a statue some people say shows the builders. In the 1840s, a soapstone effigy was found near Murphy, North Carolina. 2 conjoined figures, pale stone, round-eyed, shoulder to shoulder. Today it stands in a case at the Cherokee County Historical Museum. The Cherokee oral tradition of the moon-eyed people, recorded since the 18th century, describes exactly that, pale, night-seeing people who lived in these mountains before the Cherokee came. A real tradition, a real object. And here's the honest state of play. No bridge between them that anyone can certify. The effigy's carver's age and intent are all undetermined. The link to the legend is interpretation, made mostly by people who wanted the story to close. It hasn't closed. Look at the 2 figures long enough, and the problem becomes obvious. You're holding a genuine artifact and a genuine legend in the same hand, and honesty means refusing to weld them together. The legend finally has a face. The face has no caption. To here, the uncertainty came from missing records. The last 3 are different. Places where the evidence exists, has been studied for years, and still refuses to settle. A hillside that started a war. A mound left sealed on purpose, and the stone promised in the first minute of this video. Number 3, the hillside that went viral. The carved boulders we left behind at Track Rock have company. Climb the slope above them, and low stone walls step uphill through the laurel like overgrown stairs. More than 150 terraces and structures spread across the mountainside. In 2011, a claim about them went viral. Maya refugees, fleeing collapse, had built a city in the Georgia mountains. The story exploded online, and the mountain still hasn't heard the end of it. Here's what the evidence actually supports. Forest Service archaeology attributes the terraces to ancestral native builders, likely Cherokee-related, engineering the slope for farming and settlement centuries ago. The Maya theory is rejected by professional archaeologists and, pointedly, by the Eastern Band of Cherokee themselves. But full excavation has never happened, so the exact chronology stays loose. And loose chronology is oxygen for a viral myth. The irony is that the real story is bigger than the fake one. Mountain agricultural engineering, by peoples the postcard version of Appalachia never credits with engineering at all. The fake mystery got the clicks. The real one got a locked gate. Number 2. The mound that said no. The Cherokee call Keetoowah the mother town, the place their own tradition points to as the beginning, and its mound has never been dug. It sits in the Tuckasegee Valley near Bryson City, North Carolina. A low rise plowed down by a century of farming, unimposing and absolute in the middle of an open field. In 1996, the Eastern Band repurchased the 309 acres, bringing the origin place back after the removals. Occupation evidence at Keetoowah spans thousands of years, and tradition holds that the mound carried the sacred fire at the center of Cherokee life. Then came the instruments. Geophysical survey detected dozens of subsurface anomalies, structures, features, an entire buried record mapped in detail, and then left alone. That's the third time on this list a site has been left unopened by choice, and this time it's the clearest. The strongest data set in this whole countdown sits deliberately unread because the people with authority over it chose sovereignty over curiosity. That's not a failure of science. It's a decision about who questions belong to. Every other mystery on this list is waiting for an answer. This one declined the question. Number 1. The stone that answers to no one. This is the boulder from the opening. A single soapstone rock in a Caney Fork Cove in Jackson County, North Carolina, carrying more than 1,500 carved motifs, the densest petroglyph panel east of the Mississippi. And no living person can read it. Go to Judaculla Rock at low evening light, when the sun drops sideways across the surface, and shadows raise 1,000 cupels, lines, spirals, and one 7-fingered hand out of what looked like flat, gray stone. It's soapstone, the same material as those half-carved bowls still welded to the Virginia outcrops. And quarrying scars around the rock show it was a workshop too. Art and industry on one surface. Cherokee tradition says the giant Judaculla leapt from Devil's Courthouse and landed here, his hand striking the rock. That's oral tradition, held and told to this day. The science offers less comfort. Dating attempts range from roughly 1500 BCE onward with no consensus. The carving likely spans generations, and no framework for reading it exists at all. Every thread of this countdown runs through this one stone. Quarry economics, living Cherokee relationship, legend mapped onto terrain, the hard outer limit of what evidence can do. And soapstone is soft. The marks are eroding faster than anyone can read them, which means the most written upon stone in the eastern mountains is slowly taking its message back. After 200 years of study, our best translation is silence. The Blue Ridge. On the postcard, the overlooks, the parkway, the leaf season, is only the newest layer of a territory stacked with walls, quarries, mounds, and messages the scenic corridor never mentions. Tell me in the comments about the structure, carving, mound, or stone pile near you that outsiders drive past or can't explain, because those are the ones worth chasing. Subscribe so you don't miss what we dig into next, and the next investigation is already waiting for you on screen.